The Phoenix Suns have made a lot of moves this offseason, and they've gotten better, but if they want to continue to improve as a trade, the best way to do so, we're going to talk about who has the most trade value on this team and who we could actually see being used in a trade. Stephen, Gil, Friday, PHNX Suns after this. What's up? What's happening? Welcome into a Friday edition of the PHNX Suns show. Gil here, the freckled mamba behind the Mac, making it happen. Stephen to my right. We got Alan catching the show live. It is a miracle. It's like a birthday week. A miracle. Shout out to you.
Boy,
but sure. Yeah, of course, another birthday shout out to you, Alan. We appreciate having you here with us this Friday. It's going to be a fun Friday show for a variety of reasons. And before we get into all the fun that is in store on Friday, how are you feeling on this Friday, Stephen?
Feeling good. Looking forward to another fun conversation that we'll be able to have, looking at trade value for guys and the likeliness that they may get dealt through a different lens than we typically do. So this should be fun. How are you feeling on this Friday?
I'm having a good day. We're here. We had a fun time kind of determining this exercise and a lot of things that we're going to talk about. And, the NBA offseason continues to roll on, but we got some other sports. Also, we have the WNBA to keep us.
I wish I was feeling as good as Chelsea Gray.
Oh, yeah, no, there's not. Yeah. That's next level good feelings as far as what she's got going on. And like the two, not one, but two buzzer-beating shots in the clutch to make things happen. So definitely different is a good way to put it. Freckle Mamba, how are you feeling on this Friday, man?
I'm ready. I'm ready to get through this thought exercise. I think we have a fun way of displaying it. So I'm excited to see you guys talk through it and excited to hear the feedback on how it goes.
Yeah, so to set the scene before we get into the exercise itself, this has been a crazy offseason. We think about everything that Philadelphia has done, the Portland trade that they made, all these things that have happened around the league. Minnesota has made a big trade. The Suns have gotten in on the action with a big trade. A lot of teams have gone to the trade market to improve. And what it's taught me, or reminded us, I think February 2nd, 2025 taught all of us that anybody could get traded at any point in time, and we'll never doubt that, right? And it's funny, it's how big of a deal it was. We all remember the day that it happened. But it kind of puts us in that mode of thinking, okay, well, the Suns have answered these questions, and we see all of these conversations about, hey, what if the Suns make another trade? And we've talked about Jalen Green, and people sometimes talk about just trading all of the good players on the Suns to just focus on the future and get draft picks, which isn't necessarily something that could or should be done given all the question marks around what the draft is going to look like. But it is a reminder that trading oftentimes is the best avenue to build a championship team. The Knicks, the champion, well, hey, they acquired Mikal Bridges via trade. They acquired OG Anunoby via trade. They acquired Karl-Anthony Towns via trade. They acquired Josh Hart via trade. So trades can build a championship type team. So I think that's the backdrop of this conversation that we're going to have and how we're going to talk about trade value and trade likelihood and all of those things. But I'm curious, Stephen, when you think about this Suns team and the built versus bought and Devin Booker being homegrown talent, but a lot of the guys around him aren't homegrown talent. How do you think about the blend that the Suns have gotten to get them to this point where they are right now?
Yeah, it's a classic case of everybody's journey is not the same. And when you have some of the things that the Suns had in previous iterations, and things don't end the way that you might hope for or expect for them to, you just kind of succumb to the beast in terms of leverage that players have and things like that. So it's unfortunate. It makes it tough to navigate. But again, when you have a plan and you understand the ways you need to navigate said plan to put yourself back in position to be in control of your destiny, this feels like that a little bit of the inflection point where the Suns are now stealing back that leverage and being more in control of what's going on with their books and what players, no pun intended, and what players are involved with it all as they go forward with each year going to that deadline year of 2029, 2030 for them. So they're definitely doing a good job of reversing the sales of trajectory that they were on around this time last year, where there was a lot more ambiguity. There's a whole lot more clarity and understanding now. And if you're talking about things that I imagine they will want to have had a year removed from everything that was last offseason, this would be right where they would want to be, probably, and then some, to be honest.
And when I think about that, and obviously the conversation, because you guys, especially shout out to Sean, shout out to Spike saying that we're brought to you by Daktronics. I wish we was getting that Daktronics money from what we've heard about what was happening. Listen, that's all I gotta say. I don't know what would be different, but something would be different if we were getting that Daktronics money. That's all I gotta say. But we'll get there eventually. But when you guys are a part of the conversation, when we talk about this Suns roster, a lot of the conversations that we had this year before Jamaree was traded to Portland was like, hey, what about Jalen for Ja? Hey, what about Jalen for Zion? Hey, what about Jalen for Josh Giddey is now what we're seeing. And there's a common trend with that, and that is Jalen Green, somebody who was acquired via trade last season. And what we decided to do when having this conversation, it wasn't just, oh, hey, Jalen Green averaged this, or was this available last year? Jalen Green is making this much money. We're taking it back to school. And I know some people don't like to look at graphs when having a hoop convo, but we're going to look at graphs when having a hoop convo in a unique sense, in that we've got the X and Y axis of trade likelihood and trade value. So how valuable do teams around the league, or how valuable do we assume that teams around the league view all 15 players on standard contracts with the Suns? And then how likely are the Suns to move them? Because you could have the most valuable trade asset in the world, and unless your name is Nico, you might not part ways with that valuable asset because they're what we often call untouchable in the grand scheme of things. So we're going to go through the Suns roster throughout this and have some conversations about how we view each player through those lenses and what that could yield in return if a trade is likely. And it doesn't necessarily need to be at this point in the offseason. It could be during training camp. It could be in December. It could be at the trade deadline. All that will be factored into the conversation. And all of this kind of ties in with where the roster is right now before we get to the exercise after our first break. The contract extension part of it, because I'm pretty sure you guys could expect, and I know you know where we're going to probably go with the Dillon Brooks situation and him signing the contract extension and everybody saying that they want him to retire here and continue his career here and all of those things. Well, there's somebody else that's extension eligible, and that's a big part of the conversation that we're going to have. Another clutch client like Dillon Brooks is, a guy that was acquired via trade like Dillon Brooks was. But we got the Dillon Brooks extension news 2 days ago now. Do you take anything from that, read any tea leaves with what that could mean with Miles Bridges kind of maybe being the next one to do that? Because when I interviewed Mike Scotto in Las Vegas, he said that they acquired him with long-term extension in mind.
I don't think that it's out the realm of possibility, but what I will say is it doesn't feel like they're in a rush to feel the need to do that.
Okay.
I feel like there's some time that they can play with and kind of see the way things roll and how things fit together and everything before ultimately putting that into the future part.
See the way things roll, see how he is as a roller, maybe, too?
Correct. Yeah.
Short roll?
Yeah, short roll, all of that. But to that same part of the conversation that you're having, me and Eric had a conversation a while ago with Keith Smith, and Keith Smith talked about with the Suns having like 4 or 5 guys at that time that were extension eligible. He mentioned that for a team that is working their way out of some kind of cap hell, if you will, having so much dead money on the books, you don't want to overcommit to future money too soon. So you want to kind of strike a balance in respect to that and not having to maybe jump too quickly, jump the broom, if you will, into those kind of transactional things. So I have in mind that part that you're speaking to with people wanting to see if the Miles Bridges stuff happens soon, but I also have in the back of my mind what Keith mentioned as well.
When you said jump the broom, I almost shouted out Paula Patton, but now I'm shouting out Paula Patton because she always deserves a shout out. And if you want to make it a basketball conversation, she wasn't just right with Common, who played for the New Jersey Nets, which is probably the least believable basketball casting ever. But shout out to Common as well.
Shout out Queen Latifah too.
Yeah, shout out, of course, while we're at it. But when we were talking about these numbers and what Dillon did, we can pull the salary cap table up just to kind of get an idea of where things are. And one of the things that we've had a lot of these conversations when we were talking contract stuff and with these guys, that 2030 year, which is really important because it's when dead money's off the books. It's also the Devin Booker of it all and his role and what we talked about yesterday. A contention window. I don't want to say title window. They have to prove a little more for me to use that phrase, but contention window when you have high expectations for this team on day one because of the high-level talent in the locker room and because of the caliber of talent that you have. So that's what I'm curious about, running the risk with that, understanding where Miles is contract-wise and what could be next for him and just making sure he's a part of that window as well because you don't want to lose him for nothing and you don't want him to just walk after parting ways with what you parted ways for to acquire him. And that will be a big part of the conversation with his trade likelihood as well. So I think the biggest takeaway from that is that And I guess my final question with Miles Bridges through the extension lens and not the trade lens and what that could look like, which we will get to, is how long is too long to wait? Where do you weigh the risk and reward of, you acquired him to be the missing piece. You acquired him to ball out, which in a perfect world, that means that he is going to earn a bigger payday than he's getting right now, which I'm sure you'd be happy to pay him if he earns it. But then there's a flip side where he doesn't live up to that and you're having some other conversations. And it's trying to find the balance of getting ahead of it to where you're not overpaying. I know there have been a lot of team-friendly deals been going on, but also you don't want to get ahead of it too far where you maybe or get behind it where he's playing so well that it's like, I don't know if this is going to fit with what we have on the books and the vision that we have moving forward.
I guess I have a question for your question.
Okay.
And where do you think or see his value in respect to both his position and where his level of production and impact was last season with Charlotte? Because I think that's kind of where my mindset is, okay, if I'm assessing what a lot of things happening at that 3-4 position around him is looking like on the market, in addition to what he did himself his most recent season, I'm kind of I won't say in limbo, but I'm kind of like wanting to see what it's going to look like with the Suns. So maybe a quarter of the way through the season or a little bit further than that potentially.
Okay. So like you need that's like enough of a sample size that, and I'm thinking about it because last year was such not a weird year, but it was such a different year for him with the Hornets, where it's a different role. It resulted in more success. People could look at it if they're just looking at some of the raw numbers and raw figures and calling it a down year. But you could also look at it and say, oh, hey, this guy sacrificed some things, took some things differently or had a different approach to win, because that's exactly what he's going to be asked to do here. And he's going to be asked to be Miles, but be Miles through the Phoenix Suns lens.
Exactly.
So that is a good point. And Dre says, don't think there's much downside to waiting. If he plays so well that you got to give him more than you give him now, great, but that's far from a guarantee. And I think the best case scenario is that he's exactly who you expect him to be, and you can still strike some type of balance that's good for Miles and Clutch, that's also good for the Suns and 2026, 27, 2027, 28, but also the 2030 timeline that we continue to reference with this team. And to that point that Dre said, Dillon had a much better year than anybody would have expected him to have had last season. And most people are saying that it was a really good value deal that he got that is beneficial for all parties involved. So as we've continued to say, if this front office has shown us anything, they've known how to find ways to get something that works for everybody, that everybody can be happy about. And we look back and say, you know what, that feels fair. So that's the hope with Miles. But the biggest thing, as you were saying, is if he performs well.
Yeah, and I think you brought up a good point in saying that, is he going to be who they think he is? And I think that for Cardinals fans out there, they would be glad to hear that because Dennis Green also said the exact same thing. Very different context.
Very different context.
Very, very different context. But that's some alignment for you on this Friday.
I can't wait to say Miles Bridges is the player that we think he is. Complimentary, because there are some people that don't necessarily see the fit, but we've been people who have talked about the good side of that fit. And Mark asked if Devin has the most trade value on the Suns, and it's an interesting question, which we will get to. We're going to throw it to our first break, and we'll start the exercise. You'll see the graph that we're going to work with, and we'll go through some rotational guys, the starting lineup, and some more rotational guys after that, after our first break. Time is winding down, or the countdown is on, as football season is right around the corner, both NFL and college football, which isn't as threatening for some people. And if you want to rep your school and rep your campus colors, Branded Bills can help you do that. They have partnerships with 40 colleges and universities as part of their campus collection. If you want to rep Michigan State, Arizona State, or even Wake Forest, Branded Bills has you covered. They've got snapbacks, truckers, fitteds, beanies, all different kind of caps throughout their different collections, and they blend performance and style, and they partner with the Phoenix Suns. So when basketball season rolls around, you can rep that team as well by getting a Branded Bills cap over at the Morgue. And right now, if you head to brandedbills.com and use the code BBPHNX15, you'll get 15% off your first order. That's BBPHNX15 for 15% off. Look good and rep your squad. Now, if you or anyone you know was involved in a serious accident that caused injury, it's important to do your research to find the right representation. And that research is going to lead you to Mark and Alexis Breyer, the husband and wife law team. They're from Phoenix. They've raised their 8 children in Phoenix, and their focus is always the client and giving back to the community. Their team brings over hundreds of years of combined trial experience, and while they might not be able to guarantee the outcome of a legal case, they will make promises to you that they will be proud to uphold. And one of those promises is that you will receive at least as much in your pocket as they receive for their fee, even if they have to reduce their attorney's fee to do so. If you've had a serious injury, call the husband and wife law team first at 602-783-8841, or visit their website, the link in our show notes, and tell them that Gil and Stephen from PHNX Suns sent you. And sometimes I just get choked up here because I appreciate having y'all hanging out with us here on PHNX Suns. We're getting into the trade conversation with trade value and trade likelihood with these players on the Suns roster to get an idea of how we could see it playing out. And as a reminder to how this is going to work, we've got trade value on the x-axis. I haven't even talked about x and y axes since
I ain't seen one in so long.
Like 11th, 12th grade. But here we are back with that. And then we're going to have trade likelihood on the y-axis. So if it stays down and it's going up all the way to the right and they're on the x-axis completely, that means we don't see them going anywhere. But if you find them in the middle, that would be the perfect trade candidate for this Phoenix Suns team. And we're going to begin with the rotation with a guy who just re-signed with this team, and that's Colin Gillespie. And I think the financials are important to discuss with this as well. 4 years, $48 million, making about $11 million the first year of this deal. Stephen, where do you think Colin is? I think he's pretty valuable trade-wise, but I think likelihood, I don't really see it happening. I would put it pretty low, but maybe like not completely unlikely, but I think it's pretty low.
I think the likeliness or likelihood is significantly low. I think he's a guy that acknowledged and recognized the value that he has, specifically here in Phoenix. And I think that kind of actualized in the contract that he agreed to. But the value is immensely high for reasons that we talked about on Tuesday. Not just what he does on offense and having the record for threes made in the season, but also the defense and how he kind of balances both of those. So, but how far high up the value side do we throw him is the next question.
If I were to like quantify it, and let's just say quantified out of 10, there's imaginary 1 through 10 on this x-axis, I would put him at about between 7 and 8 on value. And then if there's imaginary 1 through 12 on the likelihood, and we could keep using these figures to hopefully help Ayrton kind of place things, I would put it at like a 2 or a 3 because he would be somebody that could be packaged in the right deal because it is a tradable contract. But it's not like a conversation like right now. I think it's about as close to zero as possible. But I see it happening for the right. That feels like a little bit over to the right a little more. That feels right. That feels right to me. You like that?
I honestly want to slide him to the right just a little bit more. Not gonna lie.
A little bit more value. There you
yeah,
go,
that feels more like 7
right.
to 8.
Yeah, 7. Okay, that's perfect right there.
Sure.
So Colin Gillespie, very valuable, but very unlikely unless the right deal comes around. I think that was done by design with the deal he signed. And the same can be applied to the other guard, the other undrafted guard who re-signed with the Suns this offseason, and that's Colin Gillespie. Jordan Goodwin. Jordan Goodwin, 3-year, $19 million. I think it's very similar because of the contract value, but I'm also putting him lower on the likelihood because I think that what he means to this franchise, I actually probably would bring him back a little bit more too because we've talked about how this team probably values him a little more than other teams would. Every team could use a that too. Every team could use a Jordan Goodwin, but I don't think every team would know how to use him as well as the Suns would. So I think that would probably keep some teams away or maybe make teams not as interested in that. So I would say scale down a little bit more on both from Colin.
I think value-wise, I think he has slightly more value to the Suns just because of the blue collar, the degree of blue collar to his game. So I would if Colin was like a 7.5 on the value side, I would put Goody at like maybe like an 8.5 to
through
9.
the Suns lens or through the rest of the league lens though.
Okay. So I'm looking at that.
I'm thinking through the rest of the league.
So yeah, through the league lens, you could definitely bring him a little bit closer to home on that front. And I also think on the likelihood side, it gets tough for him because his contract's a lot smaller. So it makes it hard to. Okay, if someone's looking to poach Jordan Goodwin away, are you going to be able to find trade value in some capacity that makes sense for you to part with on your end to bring in someone that does the things that Goody does? So, yeah, I'm tending to agree with you on that part as well. But where exactly, or with the numbers that we're using on that front?
I mean, we had like a 7.5 and a 2.5 for Colin. I would probably say like a 6 and a 1.5 or a 2 for those, or like 6.5 and a 2. So basically right there, but honestly, maybe even touching, but like that. That feels right.
Solid.
That feels right.
That's solid.
That feels right. This is an interesting one. The next one, Ryan Dunn, a guy who many people have put in fake trades. A lot of people in the chat when we're talking about deals and getting deals done, they kind of throw him in as salary filler sometimes, making about $5 million this upcoming season. I do believe actually less than that, 2.8, $5 million on the last year, which is an option. With him, I think the likelihood is definitely higher than these two guys. The value probably feels like it's closer to a 4 or a 5 right now, because of the unknown and the prove it aspect of it. This is a big prove it year for him. I think if he proves it, that will help him through this space in Phoenix or elsewhere, and that what he does when he's at his best is highly valuable around this league. He could be a 3-and-D ace. He just has not done it consistently yet because he is still just going to his third year in the NBA.
For sure. I was going to say a lot of the same things. I think his value from a league lens is going to be higher than what Suns fans are valuing him for. I think people look at his defensive capabilities, but also look at where he is currently at, and they see someone that can be impactful within the rotation, someone that at some point could probably be that 3-and-D or D&3 type of starter to bridge a gap in the rotation in some capacity.
He feels like he's like smack in the middle.
Yeah, that's what I was going at. I was going to say he feels like he's obviously higher than both of these guys in terms of north and south on our XY. But I feel like right there is good, Ayrton. I think where you have him is about what I had in mind. That good for you?
How do you guys feel about him being up on the likelihood just because of the depth chart in the wing?
A little bit higher?
Specifically the defensive
good question.
wing.
He does. I mean, if somebody, he does feel like the odd man out right now, but I do think that's just us sitting here right now. I think that could change around training camp. I think he's going to get just as fair of a shot as everybody else, but everybody else is like still a little bit newer, I guess.
Yeah.
And he was kind of on the outs in the rotation wise, so I understand that as well. But on the flip side, I think the likelihood and the value, I don't know where the rest of the league is right now. It could be like we can have a much better version of him in our system, so that could make it higher as well.
Let's slide him up a little bit.
A little bit? Okay.
I think that's solid.
That's fair. That's fair.
I like that.
Next up on the list, I think Ayrton might have fun with this one. Oso Ighodaro.
Muggs, you bugging.
Wow.
You are bugging.
Wow. Somebody
at Espo.
Ain't enough Daktronics money in the world. Now, we're going to talk about Oso Ighodaro. I would say this is I mean, value, I think the interesting thing about the value with him, it's high because of what he does and how affordable it is to do it. But again, it's valuable in a sense that like people would ask for him in a deal if it's a big deal and it's like, hey, you need to throw a sweetener in, or how about one of our valuable bigs who's only making, capping at $5 million. But for that same reason, I think the likelihood is pretty low. So he's right in that same area with Goody and Colin for those reasons to me, because he's really important to this team.
Yeah, he is. I would put him in that same area as well. I think that it would be very easy for the Suns to give him an extension off of his rookie deal, which lends to that conversation that we had to open the show. Different lens that we were talking through about Miles Bridges, but also being one of the guys that is eligible for that. I think he's someone that they would like to have around, and I think that little bubble of guys that's starting to surface around Colin and Goody aligns directly with where we're both kind of assuming that he should be here too.
Like maybe like directly under Colin. Like I mean, they're all together anyway, so like they're kind of like a two. Yeah, that feels about right. We can keep the likelihood where it is right there just for you, Ayrton. That's perfect. Right there on the X.
I got a serious question for you guys about Oso. Obviously, we all love him and whatnot. His value is incredibly high, and his likelihood of getting traded is almost zero. But how do you think his value changes around the league if he were to sign that 3-year, around $15 million extension that we kind of forecast him signing eventually? Does that trade his value? Does that tank his value at all? Does it increase his value? Does it do nothing?
It's just interesting through my lens when you ask that question, because it's like, again, the $5 million, I would love $5 million, but it's not a lot of money.
I would love one.
It's not a lot of money. And it's kind of like, oh, are you a team that's like, man, we just want to do a 1-for-1 trade? Because it's hard to make that happen. But then it's like, how would the rest of the league value him? Because he does a lot of things that are valued in today's NBA, which is also an interesting thing. So I think that it probably changes it not much, if not more, but yeah.
We got some behind the scenes things happening right now. I agree with you. I think that where the direction they're headed at this moment, and just kind of looking at the dynamic that Oso is starting to establish for himself and how that helps a team do some things outside of their maybe starting lineup per se. It's something that has them in a very, very positive light for many teams. I imagine that if there was you're welcome. If there was a world where Oso Ighodaro became available, I imagine there wouldn't be a short list of teams that would be. I could see him with us and doing so impactfully. So that just kind of lends itself to why I think the value is where it is, especially in comparison to where Goody and Colin Gillespie are, who are a little bit more obvious on the team's value in them side of things.
Absolutely. And the last of the bigs and the rotational area is a very interesting one. Kaman Malawach. That's about as close to, he's right there on that x-axis for me as well, as far as being unlikely, maybe even below it, because this is what everything rides on. Where like if he becomes a player that he's expected to become, or that we hope that he can become, then this changes the fortunes of your franchise. But that's why he's also valuable. If there's ever a big fish that becomes available, and I think that's probably why I would put him like in the middle, because there's not teams, and when I think of value, I'm like, there's not teams just calling, hey, can we get Kaman Malawach? It's, hey, we want insert disgruntled star that just became available. And they're like, well, hey, we're not even having this conversation with you unless you make Kaman Malawach a part of it. So I think his value is somewhere between 5 and 7 for that. But I think that the likelihood is probably between 0 and 1.
I was going to say around like 1 at most.
Yeah, 1 at most, but like midway through, just because people value him, but also they're like realistic enough to know that like we're not going to get this, a deal's not happening. So whatever.
I agree. So I think we can line up man where Ryan's left shoulder is for you.
Okay.
Like somewhere around like there, right?
Yep. Yeah, that feels it. That feels right. That feels right. Now we're going into the starting lineup before we hit a break because we don't think these two guys should need much conversation. I know Mark asked about Devin having the most value on the team, but he could probably be the furthest in the negative as far as likelihood. Like he's below that x-axis. We've heard Matt Ishbia say that they want to win a championship with Devin Booker in Phoenix. They want Devin Booker to spend his entire career with the Phoenix Suns organization. And the interesting thing about this, Mark, because he is the best player on this team, he is the all-star, he is the all-NBA caliber performer on this team, but he also is owed next season $57.1, then after that $61 million, then after that $63.7, then after that $68.7 player option. I don't have the mental capacity right now because we have X and Y axis to do the math of how much he's owed over the next couple of years, but it's north of $200 million. That's what? 63, 131, boom, 192 plus 57, so like more than $250 million. So I think that's an interesting thing where I think there are teams that can say, hey, we're one Devin Booker away from winning a championship, but it would take Devin Booker saying, I don't want to be here anymore for them to do it. So it almost kind of feels like they're not even going to bother making that call because they know the call is going to be rebuffed. So yes, I do think he has value, but then through the lens of the rest of the league, it's tricky to kind of gauge what that value actually is, because are you really like what's the point of barking up the wrong tree? Yeah,
I think that's the hard part for teams that are not the Phoenix Suns to accept, because it's like, okay, if you try to play the wait and see game, like that is as much of a risk as just going for it and saying like, hey, we want player X and we're willing to concede whatever it takes. Like I feel like we saw it with the Suns and Kevin Durant, for example, where they were just kind of, we like Kevin Durant, but we might not necessarily want to do this trade during the season, and obviously a lot of other stuff happens and they ultimately ended up making the move. It's different with the Suns with Devin because he's just been rooted here and he's just a fixated piece of what they've established. But I do think a team like Detroit is cautiously just patiently trying to see like, okay, let's just see how this goes. If y'all trip out the starting block to start a season, or if y'all trip over the hurdles halfway through your race or something like that, we'll be ready to pounce on demand there. But yes, the value for Devin is obviously as high as anyone's goes.
Yeah.
The likelihood
in the next, basically,
it's got to be like where he is now. Just slide him to the right.
Yeah, so just slide him to the right because he's the best player on the team.
Right,
so obviously, basically that's it. That's it. All right.
I think the likelihood of teams being interested in Devin Booker will never get any higher than high, like the absolute high.
Of course, that's true. And the last one we'll talk about before the break real quick, I think this is the quickest one because he just signed a contract extension. Yeah. And Matt Ishbia said that he wants Dillon Brooks to be here for years and years. I think he's also below the x-axis. The value, I think, is probably in that same cluster, maybe in between the Kaman and the cluster, because I think that he's not valued the same around the league, but he has a lot of value. Guy was averaging 20 points per game last year coming off a career year, but I do think that there's maybe some beware of part of the system being what contributed to that, but also him being 30 years old.
And as you can see now on the visual side, sorry for our audio listeners, but I can kind of speak through this for you. There's a bubble of a rotation that we're starting to see surface in the unlikely to be traded, but high on the value side of things, where you have Jordan Goodwin and Colin Gillespie and Oso Ighodaro, Dillon Brooks, and Devin Booker just firmly much closer to that bottom right quadrant of what it is we're establishing here with our XY axis.
Yeah, I like the way this looks so far. We've got 7 down, 8 to go. We'll get through the remainder of the starting lineup, including Jalen Green, who has been the topic of the majority of the discussions that have been had about potential Phoenix Suns trade. And we're doing all of that after our next break. Stephen, you know the Window Depot is a lot of things, but you know what it is more than anything?
is so much more than just a window store.
So much more than just a window store. Windows, doors, cabinets, and countertops. They're stocking more at the Window Depot, and you are going to spend less. No wait times, no gimmicks, just everyday low pricing and inventory that is ready to go. And they're going to beat any price. You know why that is, Stephen?
Why is that?
Because factory direct prices cannot be beat, and that's exactly what you're going to get at the Window Depot. You can visit thewindowdepot.com and get started on your next project today, no matter how big or how small. And regardless if you're in Phoenix, Surprise, Chandler, Tucson, or Marana, they have 8 locations across Arizona, and you can see for yourself why they're way more than just a window store. So stop in, give them a call, and their team will help you get exactly what you need. Browse and order directly at thewindowdepot.com with real-time access to in-stock products at your nearest location. Get what you need when you need it at the Window Depot. And of course, Gila River Resorts and Casinos, the ultimate spot to watch the game, place a few bets, grab some drinks, and make a whole day out of it. And we can attest to that because we have our watch parties at Gila River Resorts and Casinos. It's Arizona's #1 casino destination, and they know how to do sports the right way. BetMGM Sportsbooks, built for fans, wall-to-wall TVs, massive screens, incredible viewing setups, and flexible ways to bet while the action is happening live. So whether you're sweating out a same-game parlay, cheering on the squad with your friends, or just looking for the best game day atmosphere in Arizona, Gila River Resorts and Casinos is the place to be. Grab your crew, celebrate the big wins, and enjoy everything that Gila River Resorts and Casinos has to offer. Gila River Resorts and Casinos, all the ways you do you. Visit playatgila.com for more details. Back at the PHNX Suns show on a Friday afternoon, having some fun on a Friday activity and talking through trade value and trade likelihood with this Suns roster. We've gone through 7 players right now, and don't worry, this isn't finalized. We will go through it once we finish it all and then maybe make some final edits to what we have on this list. But we're going to continue to go through the starting lineup with the guy who's the center of this entire conversation, Jalen Green, who has been discussed through the lens of a lot of different potential trades. And I don't think that this franchise is ready to make that move yet. I think that they genuinely want to see what it's going to look like. Last year was not a fair shake for him, was not a fair shake for this team.
It was an anomaly in many respects for Jalen.
In a lot of ways. But I also think that his value is not necessarily lower than others, but it's probably lower than it has been because of the way that last year went. So it makes this an interesting one with Jalen Green. How do you place Jalen Green with what everything has gone on with him, but also with where he stands in the scope of this Suns franchise and how the rest of the league is viewing him?
Yeah, I think it's three layers all in one. So talent, potential, and contract. I think all 3 of those things for Jalen Green at this present moment are in his favor on that front. So I start with the value side, and I think he should be between, maybe right in the middle between where Oso's right shoulder is and where Devin Booker is.
Okay.
Yep, so right in that window right there on the value side of things. Now, likelihood or likeliness is where I think we can have a conversation.
Like it's around the Colin range and maybe a little bit above that.
I was gonna say Ayrton, where you initially had him, that's about where I was thinking. If not, maybe just a smidge higher, but I'm not mad at that spot at all.
That feels good. And where I'm thinking about this is not right now, not between now and training camp.
For sure.
But there's a couple things that could happen. We know he's extension eligible in October. What if, and I'm not saying that he's greedy or his representation is greedy, but like what if those talks stall and it becomes bad, it goes left? Mm-hmm. Like that could be a time in which, hey, what if they actually get a chance to see it from day one and, as you mentioned, 21, 25 games, a quarter of the way through the season, it doesn't look the way they anticipated it looking, but he might be playing well. It could happen then. What if somebody becomes available? I think that with all that we've talked about, all it takes is one disgruntled star saying, I want to go. And the Suns could see that player as a fit. I think that Jalen would be the first one that would be mentioned in those conversations or that they would try to make in that deal. And that's why I think it is that level of likelihood, which is not necessarily like even between those two places. Like that's fine because I think like he would be the guy because of the talent and because of the desirability and how talented that he is.
100%, 100%. I think there's two comments, the two most recent ones that we can see right now. Start with Tizdu. He said he feels like Jalen's value is a little bit too close to Devin's.
And I'm okay with sliding it back a little bit.
I'm not mad at that. I'm definitely not, but I do feel like he should be the closest to Devin of the field.
Yeah, right. Yeah, for sure. So it's like if it's like a
if
half a step closer to that.
If we slid him to the left,
Which it doesn't like now we look at it as if like it was that much, but he should be ahead of that. Like as long as he's ahead of that group, then it's fine.
I agree.
But yeah, I think that's fair.
And second comment I wanted to mention was Daniels, where he said, "I still think the Suns should trade Green to Portland for Holiday." I mean, I would love to have Drew Holiday with the Suns, but I don't think that's something that the Portland Trailblazers are even entertaining the thought of.
Right.
They just added Jamaree, and they also already had a gluttony of guards that they can't even find enough minutes for them all to play at this present moment. So I just don't know unless you find a third team to kind of get involved with that, if that makes sense. But that's something that I imagine we have more conversations about somewhere down the line.
And my question and my thought, my response to that before we get to the final starter the final two starters we haven't talked about is just the conversation of that timeline 2030. Drew Holiday is 36 years old. How much more of these next 4 years do you think he can continue to compete at this level? I think he's got two in him, but like what would those last two look like for this franchise, or do you have something ready? Now, the next one is another interesting one. The next two starters are interesting. Mark Williams is a guy who I believe is likely. I think his likelihood is higher than it might seem right now, but I think the value is a big question mark because I think the questions around the league about his health are very valid, and the same questions that we're having about him and his health are what other teams would probably ask as well. But in a timeline in which he plays well, is durable, but also Kamal Malawach is playing well, and the Suns are like, it's time to make the future the present. Shout out to the future is the present. I think that would be when that conversation could happen, be it mid-December or around the trade deadline. Yeah. So the likelihood feels like a Jalen level likelihood, maybe even a little bit higher than Jalen. Higher, like in between Jalen and Ryan. But value feels kind of closer to the center just because there's a big question around his health.
I would throw him like just slightly higher than Jalen on the value or on the likelihood, like the likelihood side, and like right there, right where you had the cursor at Ayrton. Yep, that's exactly where I had him.
I was thinking
a little bit further to the left.
A little bit further. I think like right in the middle, maybe, or maybe not necessarily. A little bit further than Ryan, because we have seen proven. I think it would be further if the health concerns weren't health concerns. But that feels about right. Maybe even like one back over to the left a little bit, but that feels good for Mark Williams. Yep. And he would be, and I think that likelihood can increase, maybe even a little bit higher in the likelihood, honestly.
I do think there's a solid chance that he could be a little higher up there. But how much higher though? Like
that's equal, like not extremely higher, but just a little bit higher. I think that's just.
I'm not mad at that.
Yeah, that feels fine. That feels fine right there. Yeah. Miles Bridges, I think that the likelihood feels very, very low. Unless the experiment is just an absolute disaster. I would say like the bottom of his headshot is touching the x-axis. That's what it feels like because you don't just part ways with two players and an unprotected pick to just flip them again.
Indeed.
Value, I don't know where the league stands right now. There's been a lot of conversation that the Suns, quote unquote, overpaid. I don't necessarily agree with that. But based on that conversation, I don't think he has the lowest trade value on the team. Definitely but he's probably the x-axis where Kaman is right now, which also, by the way, is not a final spot. But I think that feels like where he would be.
So you're saying like right
so go
there?
Up, go like right there, like where like he's touching that feels about right. You think he has more value than that? Probably a little more than that.
I think he has more value than that. But how much further to the right are we sliding him is the question.
Probably like maybe a line with Ryan. That far or like
I like that spot.
Okay. That feels fair. And like as Spike said, or who said that?
Spike, yep.
They would need to cut a player for third center. Smug said, Suns have been trying to get him for years now. He ain't going nowhere. I agree. That's why he's touching the X-axis. Now, let's take it to the bench. Another new acquisition, Luke Kennard. I think that while he is a new acquisition, I do think there's a little bit likelihood, team-friendly deal, which makes it less likely, but what he does is very valuable. He's a shooter. Actually, an interesting one now that I think about it out loud. I wouldn't say Luke is extremely likely. He's probably like a little bit ahead, like a little bit higher than Colin, and value would kind of be around that as well, just because of what he brings to the table. There are a lot of teams telling themselves they're one Luke Kennard away.
Indeed. I mean, the team he was just on is their fans are in a tizzy still that they just didn't bring him back. So I think on the value side, we're gonna do some furniture moving once we get done with everybody.
Yeah,
but I would probably throw him like on Miles's right shoulder at this present moment.
Value, okay.
And the likelihood side, I don't know how likely they are to trade him because
of what he means to what they're doing.
I think the context of how he came to the Suns and what he represents because of the kind of dust that came after that trade.
So maybe like in between Goody and Colin.
I like that.
So a little bit
Yeah. Move to the left just a little bit.
Yeah, and then down a little tiny. Yeah,
yeah,
like
right
that.
there.
Yeah, like to make it like a little triangle with those
Perfect.
three. Yeah, that's fair.
Perfect.
That's fair.
How do you guys think this looks if Luke Kennard doesn't shoot as well as one he did last year, as good as we are expecting? Do you think his likelihood could go up? Because it's like, if it's not Luke Kennard, like, who is it, man?
Do you mean as well by like increasing volume standards or just his efficiency?
I mean, the thought with this is that we basically traded Grayson and Royce for Miles and Luke Kennard. So we're losing those two shooters and hoping that we can at least recoup one of them with Luke Kennard. I don't think anyone's expecting a Royce-level shooting from Miles Bridges. So if it doesn't work with Luke Kennard, like, who else is going to shoot for us besides obviously like Booker and whatnot? But you know what I mean? Like, is that going to be someone that the Suns will be like, all right, we got to move off this guy quick and try and find another shooter that can fill that role?
I do think they would, if that was to happen, they would at least entertain the thought. I think some of the value he brings is the threat of him shooting, not always him making or even taking shots to a certain extent, and then the screening stuff. Watch the Stephen study. We talked a lot of that on there. But I think they also might use other means to bring in someone else that can add to that if they feel like they need more of it from maybe a different person or just someone to go in tandem with him to do that. So maybe they go and find a way to bring a shooter in by way of Mark Williams in some capacity, or if they look to trade someone else that's in that value pool of players, maybe Ryan Dunn comes in the form of a shooter in return to the Suns too.
Yeah, a lot of things have to change.
That's a great question though, and I think it's relevant because if he's up in the volume, guys that up their volume, even though they shot well on lower volume, doesn't always translate. Like, everybody's not always cut or wired that way to be high volume and still maintain efficiency to a certain extent. So it's something to keep in mind for sure.
That makes sense. We'll go one more before our final break, and then we'll wrap up the roster with some interesting ones for various reasons. But Rasheer Fleming, another guy in the rotation, in and out of the rotation, another guy who the future hinges on him becoming who he is projected to become. And for that reason, I think that the likelihood is very low. Again, kind of on that touching the X-axis like Miles Bridges, but the value of a guy with a 7'6" wingspan who can be maybe one of the best defenders in the league, one of the best 3-and-D players. It feels like touching the X-axis right at the Oso Ighodaro level.
Yeah, I'm not mad at that.
Maybe, yeah.
I'm not mad at that.
I think that's fair.
Yep. Especially for what he's already shown to be able to do impact wise so far. Yeah.
For sure. That's fair. And honestly, we'll go to our final break and we'll talk through. I know we have some other people wondering. There's the newest newcomer, Koa Peat, and of course Haywood Highsmith and Jamaree Bouyea. Hit our final break and talk about the rest of the people and make sure this is at the perfect snapshot when we wrap it up. Stephen, rumor has it that the team that many believe is ruining baseball is in the Valley this weekend, and I might go and boo them, if you want to go and boo them and let them know how you feel about what they're doing to the beautiful game, you can go to Game Time. Tickets are starting at $50 to get into the ballpark to cheer on the D-backs and let your voice be heard. And Game Time is super, super intuitive. You can go on, you can look where the seats are. I love the 3D view of where you are. So you're not just buying a seat, you're seeing what it's going to look like when you get the seat. No surprises. You know exactly what it's going to be. The price that you see on there is what you're going to pay. Everything is up front. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets to every type of event, because it's more than just baseball. Concerts, shows, got it on Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code PHNX for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code PHNX, and get $20 off. Download the Game Time app today.
I would buy tickets with you and boo them, but my Cubs just got done brooming them.
There you go. So look at that. They're taking care of some of that business as well. And if you're a regular viewer or listener of this show, you know where our allegiances lie. But we also want to hear from you. You can take a short survey and let us know what you love and how we can improve. And we'll let Eric know how he can improve as well. And you'll have a chance to win a $100 Amazon gift card. Now, of course, by following us, we know that you know what you're talking about. You have good taste and you have great judgment. So head to gophnx.com/feedback today to get signed up. It takes about 3 minutes, and your feedback is going to help shape what we do around here. And everyone who completes the survey will be entered to win a $100 Amazon gift card. So let your voice be heard. Take the survey today. Head to gophnx.com/feedback. That's gophnx.com/feedback. Winding down an interesting trade value, trade likelihood conversation here on PHNX Suns on this Friday afternoon. And the next one is Mr. Arizona, Mr. Koa Peat, another player who has all of the potential in the world. And it feels like the potential realm in some way, shape, form, or fashion is probably going to get you right around the x-axis. So I'm not thinking that the likelihood is very high, if at all, for Koa Peat. The value is an interesting one because we don't really know how the rest of the league views him. Now, based on what they saw at Summer League, maybe he is somewhere smack in the middle, but I don't have the likelihood any higher than a 1, if any higher than a 0. Maybe 0.5.
I think likelihood is like 0.5. I'll put him like right in that corner of Man and Miles Bridges. Yep. Like right there, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Now you wrap up with players who also, like Koa Peat has never played in an NBA game. And these are the two final guys in the rotation who we don't know what their role is going to look like this upcoming year. Haywood Highsmith is a guy who health is a big one with him. Was released and then picked up on the buyout market. So for that nobody traded for him last year would suggest that the value is probably lower than it's been. Likelihood, I would also say, is pretty low just because he's on a non-guaranteed deal. So he's probably the closest to the X and Y. I forgot what's that called again?
I forgot. You asking me questions that I do not remember.
What's that called again? You were in school more recent than all of us.
Yeah, you definitely were, significantly.
What's it called again?
Use that youth to your advantage.
The XY point?
Not the MJ shrug.
My mic's not working.
Oh wow, that's crazy. Yeah, we can toss them like right where each axis meets. Yeah.
The cool. Origin.
The
origin. Bang, that's bad. If I doubt any of my former math teachers are watching this, but if you are watching this, I'm sorry, y'all. It's been.
Nah, if any of my former math teachers are, I blame you. It's your fault. What you mean? There's accountability right there. Absolutely.
Yeah, the origin. The 0-0 coordinates is the origin. So we have Haywood Highsmith basically at the origin, and Jamaree Bouyea, I feel like, would also be somewhere probably around the origin. And he's very valuable to this team, but a guy who has grinded his way to be at this point and has been a guy who's just kind of been a journeyman in the NBA. And I think that his value is clearly defined within the Suns realm, but it wouldn't be a guy who he would like both of these guys. I could see them in deals to make money work. But other than that, I don't really see like the value in that sense from there. Yeah. But huge value to this team, huge potential value, especially with Haywood Highsmith. But league-wide, that lens is just tricky.
Yeah, I don't see – no one's going to be calling for Jamaree. I think if Jamaree was to be included in a bigger deal with the Suns player in some capacity, then I can see that happening. But I would put him around where 2H is as well.
Okay, so yeah, right there. They're kind of like there. So final snapshot of this, we've kind of had some conversations that you guys might have not heard yet, but one that we're definitely going to change right now. O.C. Godaro and Kamal Malawach. We probably have to make some.
Move some furniture for
optically,
sure.
It looks a little strange. Kamal Malawach trade value, as we were kind of saying, this is kind of us. And I said the value was that nobody's going to call, but then we have Devin Booker all the way at the end because even though everybody's going to call and they're not going to answer, they're not going to return the calls, he's still super valuable. Kamal Malawach, 7'2", potentially 3-point shooting, rim protector. He's got to be with his draft mate.
With Rasheer, yep.
Yeah, it's got to be. They've got to be together.
I would lob him over there. Yeah,
He's got to be there. Does Oso feel? I think Oso and Colin being aligned feels fair.
Yeah, Gauchos being around each other, 2/3 of them at least.
Yeah, so that feels fair. What else stands out? Or anything else looks?
Miles Bridges. I think that for a team that needed a lot of what he brings just in stature and athleticism alone, and also what you gave up to get him as well, you got to slide him a little further to the right. I would probably.
And I saw somebody point out in the chat like it would feel strange to trade for somebody who has the same trade value as Ryan Dunn, who is still proving himself in the league, whereas Miles has proven himself. It does feel a little weird, and obviously for different reasons. I think there's the money aspect of it, which is what I was thinking about. There's also, on the flip side, he is who he is, but at the same time, he is who he is. And Ryan is a ton of potential, and it would be the right situation if that situation is not Phoenix. Phoenix could be the right situation. So I understand the proven commodity aspect of it as well.
For sure. So now I guess the question is, how far to the right are we sliding Miles? Are we sliding him between Luke and Goody?
Him being in the Luke, Goody, Mark area feels fair.
Do you think, and Ayrton, if you want to chime in here too, let me know. Do you think him being right there where he is now, or on the other side of Goody, but between where Goody is and where Colin and Oso are, do you feel like that side makes more sense than this side that he's on at the present second?
I think that based on the reception of the trade, I think his value around the league is probably a little bit lower than we think, because we're kind of like calling him this missing piece in a sense. But a lot of people are saying like we overpaid for him with two older guys and a pick, you know. So
and then there was like the Shams reporting that like Cleveland was interested too, but we didn't hear much more of anything else than that.
And also like we've been targeting him for 3 years. Like no other team's been targeting him for 3 years.
Which is true, because he has been a guy who they thought, and also it took the Hornets saying, "Hey, we're closing the chapter of the last one and starting a completely new one," for it to all happen, because he isn't the only Hornet starter that was moved this offseason. So that does make sense as far as that goes. Dre says he thinks that Jalen's value is a little bit lower. It's interesting because somebody else was talking, I forgot exactly who it was because the chat was so far up, but just talking about Jalen being the most athletic player on the team and being 24 years old. Yeah. And he's the guy who it's not necessarily guaranteed to happen, but he is a guy who you part ways with and then it clicks and you regret it. You kick yourself for years of thinking, man, what if we had just believed a little bit longer? So that's kind of what I think about the potential. Like we're maybe 6 to 14 months away from not having potential conversations with him anymore. But it does feel like, especially with last year being a little bit of a wash health-wise, it bought a couple more months of potential conversations with Jalen Green, because he has not had a fair shake in a new system after being in a system where he found his way, even though it wasn't the best situation for him, because so much changed in Houston before they got some structure in place.
Yeah. I think you made some great points with that. Just in thinking more on Jalen, I think back to the context and the build-up to where we are now. The regular season he had in 2024-25 was very good. Probably some of the highest value we've seen for Jalen Green. But that playoff series against the Golden State Warriors left a lot to be desired, and that feels like that tanked a lot of the value, the goodwill of value that he had worked to establish. You double down on that last moment he's remembered with the Houston Rockets, with being that first round series against Golden State. and then you have a season where out of nowhere the injuries come and hit him in a way that feels like an anomaly because he was quite literally an Iron Man. Not quite necessarily Mikal Bridges, but at least some iteration of that considering how consistently available he showed to be for his teams prior to last season. So I'm fine with sliding his value down more when you paint the picture of the context and build up to where we presently are.
Into that like Gaucho range or like Mark, kind of the Mark, like a little bit past Colin. I think it would just be weird, like, and I think the thing that is important to stress too, if he were to be aligned with Colin, that's not to say that Colin's a better basketball player. That's just not the case. But when you factor in he's making 3 times as much money as Colin is, and some of the shortcomings that we have seen, that does kind of make some sort of sense.
For sure.
And that's not to suggest that the Suns are stuck with Jalen Green, because I think that in some deals, when you're trying to make something happen, they're going to say, well, who's the talented players on your roster? He is one of the talented players on your roster.
For
so
sure.
Talent alone, I would say that like there's the value there. So I would say like maybe an edge, like just like a slightly ahead of that group.
I was
like,
going to say about right there.
They're right there, and but then like behind the young players, because there's like, when you get to that, there's way more potential with them. But the talent that he has is through the roof.
Yeah, that's about where I envision. So just sliding him about a couple steps to the left of where he was initially. Was there anyone else when you're looking at the way that we have shape-shifted, the way the axes are set up at this moment?
This feels right. Ryan does feel like he's kind of on an island. I don't know if that like looks like odd, but it does feel fair. Mark is kind of on an adjoining island or an adjacent island, but that does kind of feel like when we think about the way this season could play out, you know, if the trade deadline passes, I would not be surprised to learn that neither of them were on the roster, but I also would not be surprised that they figured it out and are still part of this roster. So that's what kind of goes into where we are with that. Any more objections from you, Freckled Mamba?
No, I think this is maybe the best list that anyone has ever made in the history of
I agree.
You talking about optically, or are you talking about the way we set it up?
I think this is right. I think this looks
sure.
the best, and I think this is the most correct basketball conversation that anyone's ever had.
Tisdu says it looks good. Russell says it looks good as well. And I understand what you're saying, Jalen, being paid too much for the production he's shown.
Tisdu.
Feel you. But yeah, I that's it's interesting. I think that this is the prove it year in a lot of ways, and that's where the player option that he has looms large. And if he can turn the corner and figure some things out, then maybe that last year of 36, 37 million, whatever it is, looks a little more valuable. But a lot of it is going to determine the value of that deal. So we appreciate you guys letting us know what you think about that, letting your voice be heard. And on the way out, I want to remind you another way that you can let your voice be heard, because Rank Week is coming, and we want to hear from our diehards.
That man was practicing in the mirror.
I've been practicing.
I've been
in the voice memos and the voice notes, because it's really important. Because over the next week, we got GOAT votes. I don't know if you made your GOAT vote yet, but best basketball player of all time, best quarterback of all time, best athlete of all time. Who are the biggest Phoenix or Arizona villains in history? The best uniforms in Arizona team history. You can only vote once, so if you're a diehard, make sure your voice is heard before voting closes on Wednesday. Share your I voted sticker on social and let us know you participated. I voted. I shared my sticker. I can't wait to reveal my votes, but I can't reveal my ballot until the results come out. If you're not a diehard, join today at gophnx.com/join and let your voice be heard. We're going to reveal these results during Rank Week, which kicks off on August 17th. So head to gophnx.com/thegoatdebate and get your votes. And we appreciate you all hanging out with us this Friday afternoon. I want to wish you all and tell you guys have a happy, enjoyable, safe weekend out there. For the Freckled Mamba, you can
go
follow.
boo the Dodgers.
Go
boo
get
the
your tickets
Dodgers
at game time, and then go over and boo that team that wears blue that's playing against the D-backs this weekend. And then when you're in the building, follow the Freckled Mamba at Freckled Mamba. Follow Stephen at StephenPG3. Follow me at Gil McGregor with an underscore. And follow us all at PHNX_Suns. Have a great weekend, y'all.
We all silly like the mayor.